Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
All right, welcome to episode number 53 of the Politics for Patriots podcast. If you have not yet done so, please, if you enjoy the show, please subscribe on iTunes. Please listen to every episode coming at you every Wednesday and Saturday. You can also listen on my website. Just go to www.eddiezipper.com. That's www.eddiezipper.com. How beautiful would it be to see the House Democrats shake the etch-a-sketch on Nancy Pelosi and make her disappear as Speaker of the House? The most important issue in the news right now is the race to become Speaker of the House. Make no mistake, this is a referendum on the future of the Democratic Party. They won back the House by lurching to the right. Period. It's the opposite of how Republicans won back the House in 2010. Well, actually, that depends on how you look at it. It was actually not the opposite. They did it the same way, by moving to the right. But it's opposite in that when Democrats move to the right, they're becoming more moderate. When Republicans move to the right, they are becoming less moderate. Ideologically, House Democrats just made a giant lurch to the right. There was no blue wave. That is a fact. Democrats won toss-up districts by campaigning against Nancy Pelosi and the National Democratic Party. That is a fact. And leadership should reflect the change in the House Democratic Party. All right, Democrats were all confetti and party blowers when Conor Lamb won that special election in Pennsylvania. They were pumped. There was so much metaphorical confetti for that win. I thought John Kasich somehow pulled off an ex post facto 2016 primary win. But zero Democrats were interested in talking about how Lamb won that seat. And he won that seat the exact same way that many of these new incoming representatives won their seats, by campaigning as moderates. He won it through the successful strategy of running against Nancy Pelosi and the National Democratic Party.
My opponent wants you to believe the biggest issue in this campaign is Nancy Pelosi. It's all a big lie. I've already said on the front page of the newspaper that I don't support Nancy Pelosi.
Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, if you want to run for office, the best way to get there is to run against Nancy Pelosi. Okay, Conor Lamb said the other day on New Day, which is the morning show on CNN if you're not familiar with it, he said that he doesn't give a crap. And I'm paraphrasing, by the way. He didn't say he doesn't give a crap. But to paraphrase, he said he does not care about seeing Trump's taxes, and he doesn't want to impeach President Trump. He wants the House to focus on policy. Specifically, he said infrastructure and prescription drug costs, not on investigations. Even though, as Adam Schiff recently told us,
the investigations are sexy. The investigations are sexy. The investigations are sexy.
And just to be clear, I did not doctor that. He actually said it over and over with that music in the background. So far, 18 Democrats who are going to be serving in the 116th Congress signed a letter opposing Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House. And there are 6 brand new incoming representatives who explicitly promised they wouldn't vote for Pelosi. They are not on that letter, but each of them did explicitly promise not to vote for Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to call them by name on this show right now. If these are your representatives, hold them accountable for their promise. Don't let them get away with starting their career in the House of Representatives with a broken promise. Okay, Jason Crow from Colorado 6. Haley Stevens from Michigan 11. Mikey, is her name Mikey? Mickey? Representative oh, great, I don't know how to say her last name either. Cheryl. We'll go with Cheryl. I could look it up, but why waste the time? I don't plan on ever saying her name again. All right, she's the representative from New Jersey's 11th district. All right, Jared Golden in Maine's 2nd district. Alyssa Slotkin from Michigan's 8th. And Andy Kim from New Jersey's 3rd. Okay, that makes 24 total Democratic representatives who have explicitly promised not to support Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House. So unless those 24 people are liars, Nancy Pelosi has about as much chance of becoming Speaker of the House as she has at uttering a coherent sentence. And I think we all know the likelihood of that.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
In the 2018 midterms, make no mistake, there was an anti-Pelosi wave from sea to shining sea. Democrats won toss-up districts and took back the House in large part because they ran against Nancy Pelosi and against the National Democratic Party. Tons more than the 24 who have promised not to support her. Loads more dodged the question. They didn't explicitly say they wouldn't vote for her, but they also refused to explicitly say that they would vote for her. Some of them had masterful political spins when they were asked about Nancy Pelosi. Like this Jim from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's so slick. Listen to this.
She is the leader of Speaker, or rather Leader Pelosi. Hopefully, we'll see. She's the current leader of the party, and I think that the party absolutely does have its leadership in the House. We have our leadership in the Senate as well.
Nailed it. But I'm sure none of them are going to vote against Pelosi because let's be real. The reason they didn't commit to opposing Pelosi is because they intended to support Pelosi, but that is such an unpopular position that they could not possibly take it while they were campaigning. There are very few districts in this country where you can safely support Nancy Pelosi before you actually have the seat. Of course, lots of Democrats still support Nancy Pelosi, so it seems like nobody else has a chance at becoming Speaker either. So yeah, maybe Nancy Pelosi doesn't have 218 votes, but surely nobody else has 218 votes. I'm about to explain why it could be really, really easy for a moderate Democrat like Tim Ryan to be elected Speaker. Well, moderate is actually not the right descriptor for Tim Ryan. He's not really moderate ideologically, but he is moderate in the sense that he's a pragmatic, bipartisan type who wants to work with the other side. He wants compromises. He doesn't want to just dig in ideologically. If he became Speaker, we wouldn't hear every day that everything Republicans do is the end of the world. He would rarely say, "This is Armageddon." Okay, Tim Ryan is a guy who may be the same as Nancy Pelosi ideologically, really, but he's serious about policy more than he's serious about politics. Ideologically, there's probably really no light between him and Pelosi, but in terms of how he does business, I'm going to call him a moderate. Okay, so Tim Ryan has not announced his candidacy for Speaker, but he did sign the letter opposing Nancy Pelosi, and he did run against her for Minority Leader back in 2016. By the way, he did none too bad running against her for Minority Leader back in 2016. She beat him 134 to 63. Okay, so she got twice as many votes as him, Why do I think that he can suddenly get the votes to become Speaker of the House when he could only get 63 votes to become Minority Leader just 2 years ago? Allow me to explain. Every quarter, when I draw the House of Representatives on the board so my Intro to American Government students can see how the House of Representatives is structured, I draw the Majority Leader and the Minority Leader to the right and left. Everything partisan goes to the right and left. The leaders, the whips, the party caucuses, the partisan committees like steering, policy, the campaign committees, all those go to the right and left because they are partisan. The Speaker of the House, I draw in the middle because the Speaker of the House is not a partisan position. It seems that way. Sometimes it seems like, well, why do we even have a majority leader in the House? Isn't that redundant? It is important to understand that the Speaker of the House serves the entire House of Representatives, not just one party. Because of that, the Speaker is elected by all 435 representatives. Everyone gets to vote on who the Speaker will be. Republicans, Democrats, Independents. Only the members of the Republican Conference get to vote on who the minority leader will be, now that they'll be the minority party in the 116th Congress. And only Democrats get to vote on who the majority leader will be. But every single member, all 435 representatives, get to vote on who the Speaker will be. The reason people don't always know this is because usually the Speaker is a foregone conclusion. The party chooses the leader ahead of time, and on January 3rd they have a perfunctory vote, knowing that it's all been predetermined. All the negotiations have been done. Okay, there hasn't been a second ballot in a Speaker of the House election since 1923, almost 100 years. Usually, all the Democrats vote for the top Democrat to be Speaker, and all the Republicans vote for the top Republican to be Speaker, and obviously the majority party wins because they're the only party with more than 218 votes. It takes 218 votes. Until this week, the 24-hour news media was acting like Nancy Pelosi was a foregone conclusion. I called them out on it. You can go to my website, www.eddiezipper.com, and listen to episode number 51 of the Politics for Patriots podcast. It's called, Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the votes to become Speaker of the House. I already knew the day after the election that she didn't have the votes, because throughout the midterms I kept track of all the Democratic candidates who were promising they wouldn't vote for her so that I could hold them accountable to that promise. Democrat candidates chose the tactic of running against Pelosi in toss-up districts. They chose to run as moderates, and it worked. The reason Democrats, I can't stress this enough, the reason Democrats took back a bunch of toss-up districts is because they ran as moderates. They ran against the National Democratic Party. They said, I'm a Democrat, but I'm against Nancy Pelosi. I'm a Democrat, but I'm against Nancy Pelosi was 2018's winning message in toss-up districts. Okay, so now we have a big division in the Democratic House caucus. And that is why this is the most important story in the news right now. There is a civil war brewing among the Democrats. We have a bunch of Democrats from toss-up districts now who are going to be gone in 2 years if they don't show the voters in their district that they are actually moderates and that they weren't just fake campaigning as moderates. What does that mean? It means Nancy Pelosi won't be able to get the 218 votes necessary to become Speaker of the House. But she will secure a lot of votes. A majority of the Democratic votes. But remember, a majority of the Democratic votes is not enough in this situation. It was when she was running for minority leader, but now she needs 218 votes because the whole House is weighing in on this. Okay, so if someone challenges Nancy Pelosi from the left, someone like Marcia Fudge, they may not get the 218 votes either. They'll have less votes than Nancy Pelosi. But this could, beware of this could provide political cover for those who promise not to vote for Pelosi. This would be a shrewd tactic on Pelosi's part to encourage someone to her left to run. Why would they do that? Because that would provide political cover for the people who won these toss-up districts by promising not to support Nancy Pelosi. Okay, the line would be, going in, I promise I won't vote for Pelosi to be Speaker of the House because I'm this moderate candidate running against this right-wing Republican conservative type. Right? And then you get voted in, but then you would say, oh, well, I promised not to vote for Pelosi, but it was between Pelosi and someone else to Pelosi's left, so I did what was better for our district. I did what I had to do to save our district from liberalism. And then you get a pass for voting for Nancy Pelosi. So it would not surprise me if Pelosi is totally opened to a challenge from her left, but not from her right. All right? Because then they could say, I voted for the lesser of two liberals, and they would get off the hook for their promise. So if Fudge gets in and Ryan doesn't, this will be how the Democratic Party paved the way to 218 votes for Nancy Pelosi. By giving them this out, well, I couldn't vote for somebody more liberal than Nancy Pelosi, so I had to just suck it up and vote for Pelosi. You're welcome. I saved us from more liberalism than Pelosi was offering. Okay, so here's where this whole situation becomes magical. If someone like Tim Ryan from Ohio's 13th District challenges Nancy Pelosi from her right, and not really from her right ideologically, but from her right in terms of willingness to work with the other side, willingness to be a bipartisan compromiser, there are going to be about 200 Republicans in the 116th House, Congress. That means that Tim Ryan, or anyone challenging Nancy Pelosi from the right, can reach across the aisle for votes. Pelosi most definitely can't reach across the aisle for votes. Anyone challenging Pelosi from the left certainly cannot reach across the aisle for votes. But someone challenging Nancy Pelosi from the right absolutely could reach across the aisle for votes and become a bipartisan speaker. If your representative is a Republican, let me ask you this. Would you want your representative to vote for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker even though he could not possibly win the position in a democratically held House of Representatives?
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
Or would you rather have your Republican representative use his or her vote to unseat Nancy Pelosi and help elect someone who will be a much more bipartisan speaker? My representative is a Republican. My representative happens to be super conservative. His name is Jody Hice. He's a member of the Freedom Caucus, and he's one of the most reliably conservative representatives in the entire House of Representatives. But I will call him and ask him to vote for a Democrat for Speaker if that Democrat is to the right of Nancy Pelosi or is more bipartisan than Nancy Pelosi. Why throw the vote away on something symbolic when it could be used to do something that matters? Think about how it would matter. First, you cannot alienate, steamroll, or smear the other side when you have formed a coalition with them to support your speakership. It's the same sort of situation you have when parties in a parliament form a coalition to elect a prime minister. Ryan, or whoever the moderate Democrat was, would in small part be beholden to Republicans. he would have to keep them reasonably happy in order to make sure that his coalition stayed together. Second, a moderate Democrat would be much more likely to be able to work together with President Trump than Nancy Pelosi. She's already poisoned the well of working together with all this vitriol and left-wing kookiness, all this apocalyptic nonsense from the last couple of years. Third, imagine the effect that a bipartisanly chosen speaker could have. Seriously, this could usher in a new era of bipartisanship in America, which is really what people are voting for when they vote to divide the Congress, the way America just voted to do. If Pelosi gets elected Speaker, here's what is going to happen. 10 million new investigations of President Trump.
The investigations are sexy.
Phony legislation that is passed in the House just so that the Senate can reject it. Republicans know all about that. Remember, the Congress voted over and over to repeal Obamacare, but the votes were completely fake. It only passed again and again because it was never designed to become law. It was designed to be vetoed by President Obama. When Republicans had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, suddenly it became impossible to repeal Obamacare. Suddenly we had people in Congress who no longer really had the stomach for that, even though they had already voted for it when it didn't matter. You can expect the Democrats to pass pie-in-the-sky nonsense legislation that is totally phony and only exists so that the Senate can reject it. Right? The House passes free health care for everyone. Then the Senate rejects it because the CBO estimates that it will cost 2 times as much as all the money in the world. Then the Democrats will hold a press conference and say, Republicans want you to die. People will die because the Senate rejected this. This is Armageddon.
Crumbs.
Crumbs. Sorry about that. I thought that was going to be the This is Armageddon clip of Nancy Pelosi, but it was the crumbs. So, you know she said this is Armageddon too. I don't have to dig it out. So if Nancy Pelosi gets elected Speaker of the House, we're going to end up with a House that exists for no other reason than to obstruct the Senate and the President. Nobody wants that. Even Democrats shouldn't want that, because all it will do is destroy the momentum that they just built in the 2018 midterms. Where did that new momentum come from? It came from all those Democrats who won toss-up districts by running as moderate candidates. Guess what? If they become part of an agenda of 24/7 obstruction and nonstop investigations, all that momentum is going to be squandered. I constantly tell the Democrats this, and people email me and say, don't tell the Democrats how to win. But don't worry, they never listen. Democrats, if you want to win in 2020, why don't you take a minute to learn that your party doesn't have enough voters when you are not moderate? And that is all there is to it. Election after election has proven that. You have all these moderate voters who just voted for Democrats. Over the next 2 years, you can do one of two things. You can make them happy that they voted for Democrats.
Well, this calls for a celebration.
Or you can make them regret that they voted for Democrats.
I've made a huge mistake.
Now, having said everything I've said today, I will stipulate that it is rare for a Speaker of the House to be chosen in a bipartisan effort. Like crazy super rare. Like I said, the minority party always throws their Speaker vote away because generally it is worthless. But it may not be worthless this time. Call your representative and make sure that they understand that. I'm going to call mine. I'm going to call my reliably conservative Freedom Caucus Republican representative and ask him not to throw away his Speaker vote. The House of Representatives can't attend to any business without a Speaker. So on January 3rd, when the 116th Congress takes their seats, the first thing they have to do is choose a Speaker. If nobody gets a majority of the votes, And right now, nobody has a majority of the votes. Then they just have to keep voting on who will be Speaker until there is a Speaker. In 1856, hold on.
Gentlemen, I'm here to help you with your history report.
In 1856, they had to do it over and over. Nathaniel Banks was elected Speaker on the 133rd ballot. They failed to elect a Speaker with a majority of the votes on the first 132 votes. All right, in 1923, that is the last time that the House of Representatives did not immediately choose a Speaker. Right, back then the Republicans were still divided. You had your bull moose type progressive Republicans and you had your establishment Republicans. And Frederick Gillette was eventually elected Speaker, but the progressive Republicans demanded policy compromises from him in order for him to win. So here are the different scenarios for January 3rd. Scenario number 1. This is a two-part scenario. The anti-Pelosi Democrats lose their nerve and vote for Speaker Pelosi. This is the most likely scenario, even though it will mean that a ton of the newly elected Democrats in Congress will begin their careers by breaking a campaign promise which was part of the very key to getting them elected in the first place. Nancy Pelosi, maybe she'll say something in their meeting after Thanksgiving like, "I promise to listen to you." And then the new representatives will rush to break their promise and justify it by pretending that a tiny, obtuse pledge like that, they'll pretend it isn't garbage, which of course we all know that it would be. Or, like I mentioned before, they use a second candidate as a scapegoat. Well, I didn't want to vote for Nancy Pelosi, but I had to because she was less liberal than candidate X. Maybe that'll be Marcia Fudge. Nancy Pelosi was less liberal than Marcia Fudge, so I had to go for her for the sake of the district. Now, I don't know much about Marcia Fudge, but I'll tell you right now, she seems a lot more coherent to me than Nancy Pelosi does. I've just seen her talking a couple times on TV. She seems, I don't know what else to say, more coherent than Nancy Pelosi, the master legislator. All right, scenario number 2, the newly elected Congress people show some backbone and actually demand something for their vote. So they still break a promise, but they might have something real to show for it. Maybe they'll force Nancy Pelosi to concede on some kind of policies. I don't know. That's a much less likely scenario. Like I said, the first scenario is the most likely. Scenario number 3. Nancy Pelosi is not elected Speaker immediately as the first order of business, and the Speaker election goes to multiple ballots. This would be a disaster for the Democrats because it would expose right away that they are the least unified majority party in the House in almost 100 years. If this is the scenario that plays out, and it wouldn't surprise me, even though I think it's less likely than other scenarios, it wouldn't surprise me if this happened because there is such a huge divide from being a Democrat on the district level to being a Democrat on the national level. National level Democrats have gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. District level Democrats are still running the same moderate campaigns that national Democrats used to run 100 years ago. So, if this is the scenario that plays out, Republicans could prove decisive and elect a bipartisan speaker as long as you tell them not to throw their votes away. Call them. Make it be known that we do not want Nancy Pelosi to be the speaker. And we want our Republicans in Congress to use their votes accordingly. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe on iTunes, leave a review on iTunes, visit the website. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
The investigations are sexy.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com and please subscribe.